Hi everyone, Matt here, and welcome to Umori Trample Tribal Deck Tech. As Sir Isaac Newton said, if I see farther than others, it is because I stand on the shoulders of giants, or in my case, titans. Fan 920. Huge shout out to Titans Fan 920. He recently released a Gruul Monsters deck list, which this list is inspired by. Also, props to Delmo and Lanner for their work on the Gruul archetypes. But basically, when I saw his list and played around with it, it felt really strong, and I noticed that there were not very many non-creature cards in the list, and by making a few small swaps, we are able to get a guaranteed 8th card for our opener each time in Umori. So I want to dive into the way this deck works. Essentially, the idea is that we are an aggressive deck, but not one of the all-in, low-to-the-ground aggressive decks, just a little bit larger of an aggro deck. And I think that works really well right now for two reasons. One, there have been a lot of Obosh small aggressive decks popping up in response to Yorion, and being the slightly bigger deck in a matchup like that is a huge advantage. Basically, you always want to be mid-range in the aggro matchup. So we match up really well with those decks. And we still have enough speed and resilience to actually pressure and beat the Yorion decks. So one of the ways that we achieve that is we have Arboreal Grazer and Marauding Raptor as a way to get our big creatures into play much faster than you would normally be able to. In addition, the Gem Razor can be mutated onto Grazer on turn 2, giving you a 4/4 trampling reach attacker that you can swing in with right away, which is a really fast, really strong start. And with Team of Reclamation still being pretty popular, as well as a lot of decks running fires, having 4 main deck answers to those important enchantments is really good. Now, in the 3-drop slot, we have 2 Bonecrusher Giants for a little bit of interaction, and 2 Gruul Spellbreakers. We're going to see that trample creatures end up working really well with some of our game plans, and the Gruul Spellbreaker is just a nice body that has trample. Now, in the 4-drop slot, we have a handful of creatures, most of which we don't actually plan on playing for 4 mana. So the Gem Razor, often we're trying to mutate that on to either a Stonecoil Serpent or an Arboreal Grazer, or sometimes even a Voracious Hydra. Basically, being able to stack up the +1/+1 counters from these 2 creatures works well, and making use of our early acceleration is also something that's really helpful. The Questing Beast does plan on coming down for 4 mana and is a great way to pressure opposing planeswalkers. The Shifting Ceratops having protection from blue is really, really good in the current metagame. For one, obviously, they can't steal it with Agent of Treachery. A lot of decks have trouble blocking it as well, so if they have a Yorion, a blue flying shark token, and an Agent of Treachery on the battlefield, they simply can't interact or block the Ceratops. So not only is this a great way to get pressure on the opponent, but also a lot of the current decks have a lot of trouble interacting with it. Often I'm looking to play that when I can immediately give it haste. So if you ever have a decision between whether you should play something like a Questing Beast or a Shifting Ceratops on 4 mana, it is almost always correct to play the Questing Beast. You're just maximizing the amount of damage that you can get in because you'll be attacking with these creatures on the turn they come down, as long as you can haste up the Ceratops. And in the 5-drop slot, we have 2 God Eternal Rodus. This is a nice Embercleave Light. It does a great Embercleave impression by pumping the team and also giving them vigilance. Since many of our creatures trample, that double damage really does often get through. And then the Quartzwood Crasher is just a really nice way to snowball the game. If you're able to hit in with even a single trampling creature, oftentimes you're going much wider than the opponent is set up to handle, and they need to have a sweeper right away. Lastly, I do want to talk about the lands. This is where I've really varied from pretty much all of the other lists. We are playing 27 lands, and the reason for this is twofold. One, I found that most often when I did lose games or matches, it was because I stumbled either on the color of mana that I needed or simply hitting my land drops. The other reason is that we do have Umori, so unlike the lists that are not playing a companion, we're guaranteed one more piece of action in our opener each time. So I think we can really afford to go up an additional land as well. I am playing the full playset of Stomping Ground and Temple of Abandon to help fix the mana. And I'm also playing a single Ketria Triome, just another way to make sure that we have all of our colors. We have a lot of double color spells in our deck. And if you find this later in the game, you can obviously cycle it to cash it in for a new card. So 27 lands has felt really, really consistent for me. And I would encourage you, if you've been skimping on lands, to give this a try. I found I've had to mulligan less and really stumbled on my color sources much less. Finally, in the board, at first I hybridized the list, and we had a plan where we could take out Umori and bring in things like Grafdigger's Cage, and I hated it. I actually did it against a Winota deck. It just felt much less powerful. So we are with a full creature sideboard. We want Umori every single time. That guaranteed 8th card is just better than hoping that you possibly hit some of the high impact sideboard cards. So we have one Empress Shieldbreaker. I put this in thinking mostly of things like Temur Clover, but also against the Sacrifice decks, a nice way to take out a Witch's Oven. We have 2 Bone Crusher Giants, so if we need to interact more with small creatures, we're bringing these in. 4 Klothys, God of Destiny. Any deck that relies on putting things in the graveyard, cycling, sacrifice, this is just a really great way not only to disrupt their graveyard plans, but also to pressure them on a different axis. The fact that we're draining for 2 life each and every turn makes it very hard for those decks to win. 2 Nullhide Ferox. I think this is at its best when you are potentially playing against a Kroxa deck. If ever you are able to cheat this into play when they think they're making you discard, that is usually game over. 1 Nylea Keen-Eyed. So this is the latest addition to the sideboard. It gives us some additional resiliency against sweepers. It also gives us a way to find more cards if we think we might run out of gas in a control matchup. And I think that this has a lot of potential. 2 Occame Adversary. I think this card is really good in any sort of Gruul mirror, or just any time you're playing against green permanents. Comes down really early. It's a great blocker, a dangerous attacker, and it provides card advantage. 1 more Questing Beast we can bring in against the Planeswalker decks. And then my spiciest piece of tech, the Ravager Worm. We are able to get this out fairly quickly because of things like Grazer, Raptor, and Umori. And blowing up the opponent's utility land seems really valuable, and it's got a 4/5 body, not even considering the Riot. So I think this is a really powerful effect that I'm excited to try to take advantage of. So there you have it. That is Umori Trample Tribal. I've had a ton of success with this deck, 70% win rate through Diamond and Mythic so far, so I encourage you to give it a try and let me know what you think. I'll be back with a gameplay video shortly, and I'll see you then. Bye.